The year is 1241. The Mongol horde thunders across Europe, unstoppable, feared by all. Entire kingdoms tremble as word spreads of their advance. From the Russian steppes to the plains of Hungary, their banners rise like a black tide. Cities burn, armies crumble, priests pray for deliverance, kings flee their thrones, and peasants whisper of horsemen who appear from the horizon like ghosts and leave nothing but ash behind. The Mongols are not just another army. They are a storm. Fast, merciless, disciplined beyond imagination. Their arrows blot out the sky, their horses devour the miles, and their tactics outwit even the bravest generals. For the kingdoms of Europe, there seems to be no defense, no hope, no escape. But imagine, for a moment, that history took a different turn. Imagine that, on the very fields of Hungary or Poland, where knights and swords once stood against the horde, something entirely different awaited them. Not armored cavalry, not wooden walls, but weapons born centuries later, forged in the furnaces of modern warfare. Steel cannons, precision sights, high explosive shells that could rip the earth itself apart, machines that could strike from miles away, faster than sound, louder than thunder. Could the greatest conquerors in history, warriors who bent half the world to their will, survive the firepower of the modern age? Could discipline, mobility, and courage withstand a storm of steel and fire? Or would the Mongol horde, unstoppable in their time, collapse in smoke and flame before a weapon they could not understand and could never outrun? The Mongol horde. To understand the scale of this clash, we must first understand the Mongols. The Mongol Empire was born in the early 1200s, when Genghis Khan united the warring tribes of the steppe. In less than a generation, they exploded outward in every direction. East into China, south into Persia, west into the Middle East and Europe. By the mid-13th century, the empire covered more territory than Rome, than Alexander, than Napoleon ever dreamed of. And their secret was not simply brutality. It was discipline, organization, and mobility. Each Mongol warrior was a master horseman, able to fire arrows while riding at full speed, striking targets with uncanny precision. Their composite bows could punch through armor at 200 yards. They carried multiple horses, allowing them to ride for days without rest. Their armies could move faster than any enemy could prepare. But mobility was only part of their power. The Mongols perfected deception. They feigned retreat to draw enemies into ambushes. They spread terror deliberately, slaughtering entire cities as warnings, forcing others to surrender without a fight. Against medieval armies, slow, clumsy, dependent on rigid formations, the Mongols were a force of nature. No European army could stop them. At the Battle of Legnica in 1241, the Mongols annihilated a coalition of knights and infantry. At Mohi, they shattered the Hungarian army with ease. To their contemporaries, they seemed invincible. But their invincibility depended on the weapons of their age. And those weapons, arrows, sabers, lances, belonged to a world unprepared for the thunder of modern artillery. The modern artillery. Now let us place a weapon of our time into theirs. Imagine the M777 howitzer, a modern 155mm field gun. It weighs 4 tons, yet it can be moved and deployed by a small crew. It can fire shells over 20 kilometers. Each shell weighs around 40 kilograms, packed with high explosives that detonate with enough force to shatter concrete bunkers, let alone cavalry formations. In the modern battlefield, artillery is known as the king of battle. More soldiers in the 20th century died to artillery fire than to rifles, tanks, or even airstrikes. It is not just destructive, it is relentless. A battery of howitzers can sustain fire for hours, blanketing entire landscapes in explosions. To the Mongols, who had never seen weapons beyond trebuchets and early siege engines, such firepower would be unimaginable. Their horses would panic at the sound alone. Their formations, so carefully organized into tumans and regiments, would dissolve before they could close the distance. And the most terrifying element? Artillery can kill without being seen. The Mongols could not strike back. Arrows would fall short. Charges would disintegrate long before reaching the gun crews. Against modern artillery, the battlefield ceases to be a contest. It becomes one-sided annihilation. Historical comparisons. History gives us glimpses of what happens when new weapons meet old tactics. When cannons appeared in the 14th century, they rendered castle walls obsolete. Fortresses that had resisted for centuries fell within days to bombardment. When gunpowder muskets became widespread, armored knights, once the undisputed rulers of the battlefield, were cut down by common infantry. In World War I, machine guns ended centuries of cavalry tradition in a single campaign. The Mongols themselves were brilliant adopters of technology. They absorbed Chinese gunpowder weapons, Persian engineers, and Islamic mathematics into their empire. But the leap from bows and arrows to modern artillery is not a step, it is a canyon. No tactic, no deception, no courage could close that gap. This is not a battle. It is a collision of eras. Cause and effect, step by step. So, let us imagine the clash, step by step. Step 1. The encounter. The Mongol horde approaches across the plains, thousands of riders spread wide, their banners whipping in the wind. Their scouts see only a handful of strange machines on the horizon. Confident, they prepare to sweep forward. Then, the first shell is fired. It lands in the middle of a formation, detonating with a roar louder than thunder. Horses rear. Men are torn apart. Smoke rises into the sky. The Mongols halt, stunned. They have faced arrows, catapults, even primitive gunpowder, but never this. Step 2. The shockwave. Fear spreads faster than fire. The Mongols' greatest weapon was terror, but here they are the ones terrified. Invisible projectiles rain from the distance. Riders fall without ever seeing an enemy. Entire squadrons vanish in clouds of dust and shrapnel. The discipline that carried them across continents falters. Even the most hardened warriors cannot fight an enemy they cannot reach. Step 3. The collapse of tactics. The Mongols attempt to adapt. They spread out, circling, trying to flank. They fire arrows into the air, desperate to close the distance. But artillery outranges them all. Every movement is met with another explosion. Their legendary mobility, the weapon that made them invincible, becomes meaningless. Step 4. The massacre. Within hours, the horde is broken. Thousands lie dead. Survivors scatter into the grasslands. Against medieval knights, the Mongols were unstoppable. Against artillery, they are dust before the storm. The consequences. If such a battle had occurred, the consequences for history would be staggering. The Mongol advance into Europe might have ended in a single afternoon. Kingdoms that once trembled might never have feared invasion. The devastation of China, Persia, and Russia under Mongol rule might never have occurred. Trade routes across Eurasia, once unified under Mongol control, would have remained fragmented. And this matters, because the Mongols did more than destroy. They connected. They built the Silk Road into the first true global trade network. They spread technologies, ideas, and cultures between East and West. They facilitated the exchange of paper, gunpowder, and printing into Europe, sparking transformations that shaped the Renaissance. Without the Mongol Empire, world history would look very different. Europe might not have developed as quickly. China's Ming dynasty might never have risen as it did. Russia's centuries under Mongol domination might never have happened. A single battle, tipped by artillery, could ripple across centuries. The bigger picture. But this scenario also forces us to think beyond Mongols and cannons. Every era believes its weapons make it supreme. The chariot once ruled the battlefield. Then cavalry. Then knights. Then guns. Then tanks. Each time, a weapon arose that rewrote the rules of war and erased centuries of tactics in a single stroke. Artillery would destroy the Mongols not because they were weak, but because the march of technology is merciless. What is dominant in one century becomes obsolete in the next. And one day, even the weapons we believe are invincible, the missiles, the drones, the machines of today, may fall just as quickly to something new. So what if modern artillery faced the Mongol horde? The greatest empire of the medieval world, built on speed, skill, and terror, would be erased in hours. Not by numbers, not by strategy, but by power beyond their age. And yet, the lesson is not only about the past. It is about us. The same fragility applies to every empire, every army, every age. Supremacy is temporary. Progress is relentless. If one cannon could break an empire, what would happen if modern air power, jets, drones, missiles, faced the armies of history? Next time, we'll find out.